Greetings viewers and welcome to another Mathinator video. This go round I will be doing SAT practice test number 6, section number 4, math with the calculator. And you can find this test at collegeboard.org where you can download and print out your own copy. That way you can do the test along with me. Because one of the keys to success on the SAT is to practice, and to make sure you are practicing well. And by practicing well is to make sure that you are solving the problems correctly, which is the purpose of videos like this, so you can see them being solved correctly and you can solve them correctly yourself along with the video. Either that or do it independently and then watch the video later to make sure that you did them right. Okay, and one other bit of advice I will share for looking at our keys to success is to make sure you read every question carefully, and that goes for any test that you take. But make sure you read every question, especially the long word problems. Read them slowly, read them carefully, read them thoroughly. Take note of what is given. Make sure you understand what exactly it is asking you to do. What is it asking you to solve? And make sure you understand how you know when you have gotten the correct answer. Alright, so what I do, I will read each question in its entirety one time, and then as I go about solving it, I want to talk a little bit about the concept that is on each problem and give an explanation, because of course when you take the SAT, you know you're not going to have these same questions, but you will be tested on the same concepts, and you will be tested on a wide range of concepts. Alright, so with that, let's go ahead and get into it. Which expression is equivalent to 2x squared minus 4 minus negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 7? So we're starting off with a straight up adding two polynomials, which means we're going to be combining like terms. So what I want to do is let's just write out 2x squared, and let's leave a space there, minus 4. Or you could even put plus 0x. Because looking at my second polynomial, it does have 3 terms, whereas our first one only has 2 terms. And now what I like to do when I'm subtracting polynomials, I like to change it to addition. All right, so we're going to add. And the way we can do that is to say I'm going to distribute a negative 1 across that second polynomial. So it's going to flip the signs, because subtraction is just adding the opposite. So that means I'm going to have that negative 3x squared is going to turn to a positive 3x squared. That positive 2x is going to go to a negative 2x. And then that negative 7 is going to go to a positive 7. So right there, we're eliminating C and D, because we can see that our first term is going to be 5x squared. And then we have minus 2x, which eliminates now B and tells us our answer choice A is correct. And we can go ahead and put negative 4 plus 7 is plus 3. The graph above shows the positions of Paul and Mark during a race. Paul and Mark each ran at a constant rate, and Mark was given a head start to shorten the distance he needed to run. Paul finished the race in 6 seconds, and Mark finished the race in 10 seconds. According to the graph, Mark was given a head start of how many yards? So this comes down to making sure you know how to read a graph and interpret the graph. And so both of these we have, let's look at Paul first of all. Paul's graph, we're looking at y equals mx plus b. And for Mark, his is also y equals mx plus b. Now let's look at our plus b, because the plus b is going to give us the head start. Now when we identify our y-intercept, the y-intercept for Paul is 0, and the y-intercept for Mark is 18. And that gives us the head start. And so we see we had to sift through that 6 seconds and that 10 seconds. That really was not relevant to us. What was relevant to us is their starting distance, which we see again for Paul, he started at 0. For Mark, he started at 18, which was the head start he was given. Snow fell and then stopped for a time. When the snow began to fall again, it fell at a faster rate than it had initially. Assuming that none of the snow melted during the time indicated, which of the following graphs could model the total accumulation of snow versus time? So this one is all about reading a graph and interpreting a situation as a graph. So we look at accumulation versus time. So it's continuing to accumulate. So we're looking for something that never decreases. So the accumulation is never going to decrease because it says that none of it melts. It also said that it stopped for a time. That means as time went on, the accumulation did not increase. It stayed at a constant rate. So that rules out D, because D shows the accumulation just continuing to accumulate for the entire time period. Now the other part, the last part we're looking at, is that after that period of time where there was no accumulation, says after that it began to accumulate at a faster rate, or it began to fall at a faster rate, which means it began to accumulate at a faster rate. So that means that after this time of no accumulation, we're looking for a steeper slope, because our slope is our rate of change. We're looking for it to be steeper after that flat part than before, and we see A has it steeper after that flat part of no accumulation. A website hosting service charges businesses a one-time setup fee of $350 plus D dollars for each month. If a business owner paid $1,010 for the first 12 months, including the setup fee, what is the value of D? We have another linear equation, which we've got to recognize. Y equals this situation is we have a setup fee. I'm going to put that plus 350 right here. And D dollars for each month. So we have D times M. So the D dollars for each month, that is our rate. All right, the rate of change, the rate of increase, and M is the number of months. All right, so now we can fill in what we do know. We do know that after 12 months, the business owner paid $1,010, and that was for D times 12 plus 350. And now I'm pretty sure you can see what to do from here. If we subtract that 350 from each side, we get 660 equals D times 12, meaning 55 equals D. So $55 per month. Let's make that look a little, get it like, okay, there we go. All right, 6x minus 9y is greater than 12. Which of the following inequalities is equivalent to the inequality above? Now, since we're talking about equivalent expressions, then our constant at the end and our two coefficients all have to be in the same ratio. So as I look at my answer choices, I see if A is correct, we've got 12 divided by 6 is equal to 2. So the coefficients on x and y have to be the same as these coefficients divided by 6. Well, 9 divided by 6 is not 1, so A is not correct. 4 is equal to 12 divided by 3, which means in order for these to be equivalent, then the coefficients on x and y have to be the same as these coefficients divided by 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3, 6 divided by 3 is 2. That means B is an equivalent expression. The table above shows a summary of 1,200 responses to a survey question. Based on the table, how many of those surveyed get most of their medical information from either a doctor or the internet? All right, so this is just a general type math problem. So when we talk about getting their medical information from a doctor or the internet, that is these people right here. So we're looking at 76%. And we're saying 76% of those 1,200. So we're looking at what is 76% of 1,200. So our math problem here is going to be 0.76 times 1,200. Now we can go to our handy dandy magic math machine, also known as our calculator, and solve this out. But let's look at some mental math here. All right, let's sharpen our mental skills. I know that 7 times 12 is 84. 8 times 12 is 96, which means 7.5 times 12 is going to be 90. So 76% of 1,200 is going to be a little bit more than 90 with an extra 0 added onto it. So we're looking for a number that's a little bit more than 900, which is C. The members of a city council wanted to assess the opinions of all city residents about converting an open field into a dog park. The council surveyed a sample of 500 city residents who own dogs. The survey showed that the majority of those sampled were in favor of the dog park. Which of the following is true about the City Council survey? Now, I mentioned at the beginning that you need to make sure you read each question carefully. And in cases like this, we also need to make sure we read each answer choice carefully, because this one isn't really about math per se, but being able to interpret a situation. It shows that the majority of city residents are in favor of the dog park. Well, we don't know how many residents are in the city, so we don't know what percentage of the city residents that 500 entails or encompasses, so we cannot say that this is definitely true. The survey sample should have included more residents who are dog owners. Well, that doesn't have to be true. That doesn't even make sense to say that it should just include more dog owners. And we'll see why when we get to the answer. The survey sample should have consisted entirely of residents who do not own dogs. Again, that doesn't make sense either. The survey sample is biased because it is not representative of all city residents. Now, it says the council surveyed a sample of 500 city residents who own dogs. All right, so since they are only surveying dog owners, that shows bias. So now that's why B doesn't make sense, because to include more residents who are dog owners would just be more bias. And especially if we're only talking about entirely residents who do not own dogs, that would be extreme bias because it would not reflect the opinions of those who do not own dogs. So again, that is a biased survey. Answer choice D. The table above shows the flavors of ice cream and the toppings chosen by the people at a party. Each person chose one flavor of ice cream and one topping. Of the people who chose vanilla ice cream, what fraction chose hot fudge as a topping? All right, so when we talk about fractions like this, and this is like a percentage and probability type problem also, our denominator is the pool of people or the sample of the population we are pulling from. So we're looking at those who chose vanilla ice cream. That is going to be our denominator. So those who chose vanilla is the 8 plus 5. So 13 chose vanilla. And right there it eliminates A and C. So what fraction of those chose hot fudge as a topping? So now our numerator is that number that we are picking from the hot fudge topping in this case. So 8, meaning 8 over 13. D is our correct answer. The total area of a coastal city is 92.1 square miles, of which 11.3 square miles is water. If the city had a population of 621,000 people in the year 2010, which of the following is closest to the population density in people per square mile of land area of the city at that time? All right, well, in order to solve this one, first of all, we need to figure out what is the land area. So we're trying to find out population density, people per square mile of land area. So since it had a total of 92.1 square miles, but 11.3 was water, we're looking for land area, so we need to subtract that out. So we have 80.8 square miles of land area. So now we're looking at, we have 621,000 divided by 80.8. Now, once again, we could go to our handy dandy magic math machine, but what I want to do here is, let's drop off that 0.8 and let's just use some estimations, because estimating can help us out a lot here. If we do that and say estimate that as 80, that means we can cross out a 0 there, and we're looking at 62,100 divided by 8. Again, looking at our answer choices, well, 76,000 and 55,000 is way too much. Now, I know that 8 times 8 is 64, so 8 times 8,000 would be 64,000. So I'm looking for a number that's going to be a little bit less than 8,000, and that brings us to B. And I also know the answer cannot be A, because 8 times 7,000 would be 56,000, which is less than that 621,000. So a number that is less than 7,000 would be even lower than that once we multiply by 80. But so we see using mental math will really help us out moving forward. Between 1497 and 1500, Amerigo Vespucci embarked on 2 voyages to the New World. According to Vespucci's letters, the first voyage lasted 43 days longer than the second voyage, and the two voyages combined lasted a total of 1,003 days. How many days did the second voyage last? All right, so this is just all about interpreting the wording and setting up an algebra problem. So let's look at the two voyages. We have X is voyage 1 and Y is voyage 2. So the first voyage, X, is 43 days longer than the second voyage, so X is equal to Y plus 43. So now the first voyage is X, the second voyage is Y. So the first voyage, Y plus 43, plus the second voyage, Y, equals 1,003 days. Now grouping like terms, that gives us 2y equals 960, which means our second voyage, Y, lasted 480 days. 7x plus 3y equals 8. 6x minus 3y equals 5. For the solution xy to the system of equations above, what is the value of x minus y? Now, systems of equations, certain things we want to look at, and in this one I see that y has the same coefficient. Okay, so that means I want to eliminate y, but they have different signs. I always tell my class the same sign subtract, so if the signs are different, we're going to add the two equations, which will give us 13x equals 13, so x equals 1. Now, it's asking us for what is the value of x minus y, so that means we need to find out what y is equal to. And so we know our next step is going to be to substitute, so I have 7 times 1 plus 3y equals 8. That gives me 3y equals 1, so y equals 1/3. And now x minus y, 1 minus 1/3, is equal to 2/3. Answer choice B. In 1919, H.S. Reed and R.H. Holland published a paper on the growth of sunflowers. Included in the paper were the table and graph above, which show the height h in centimeters of a sunflower t days after the sunflower begins to grow. Over which of the following time periods is the average growth rate of the sunflower the least? Okay, so first of all, we need to understand that the average growth rate is going to be the slope between any 2 points that we're given. And we're given 0 to 21. Well, actually, before we start looking at that, so if we're talking about the least, that means we want the flattest. What time period gives us the flattest slope? So from 0 to 21, all right, we'll see that's kind of steep there. 21 to 42 gets even steeper. 42 to 63, not as steep. But then we see from 63 to 84 is definitely the flattest of those slopes there. So it is answer choice D. The function h defined by h of t equals at plus b, where a and b are constants, models the height in centimeters of the sunflower after t days of growth during a time period in which the growth is approximately linear. What does a represent? Well, we need to recognize h of t equals at plus b is a y equals mx plus b. That's a linear equation, because it says in which the growth is approximately linear. And so now we see that m is always our slope. A is in the place of m, so a is going to be some type of slope, some type of rate of change. All right, the predicted number of centimeters the sunflower grows each day during the time period. And that growth each day, all right, that is a rate of change. So it is a, but let's go ahead and read our other answer choices, because I said read all your answer choices carefully. The predicted height in centimeters of the sunflower at the beginning of the period. Well, the beginning of the period is when x equals 0, which would be our b, our y-intercept, so we know it's not b. The predicted height in centimeters of the sunflower at the end of the period. Well, the end of the period is going to be a times the t plus b, so it can't be that, answer choice C. The predicted total increase in the height of the sunflower in centimeters, and no, it is not the predicted total increase, it is the rate of increase, which again brings us back to answer choice A. The growth rate of the sunflower from day 14 to day 35 is nearly constant. On this interval, which of the following equations best models the height h in centimeters of the sunflower t days after it begins to grow? So we're looking for an equation just on that 14 to 35 day period, which means we need to find out the slope. Because all of our answer choice slopes are different, once we find out the slope from 14 to 35, we will find our equation. So let's go back and look. At 14, that's about 39. And at 35, that's a little more than halfway. It's a little more than 130. Let's just call it 132. So 35, 132. So the slope there, of course, is going to be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And that's going to come out to 93 divided by 21. So let's write that over here. 93 divided by 21. Once again, we could go to our calculator, but we can see that 93 divided by 21 is going to be closest to 4.5, so we have answer choice B. Which of the following equations relates y to x for the values in the table above? All right, let's just go. So if y equals 1/2 times 5/2 raised to the x. So 5/2 raised to the x, that's exponential growth. So that's going to start to get real big real quick. And of course, if we just look at 3 right here, 5 cubed is 125. 2 cubed is 8, so we're looking at 125 over 6, so that doesn't equate there. So we can quickly eliminate that. Same thing with b. And since our base is less than 1, that would be a decreasing exponential function, so we know it's not b. And now that we see that it is linear, we need to find out what is the slope. Is our slope 3/4? Well, we can see for each one, our numerator increases by 14 each time. That's something you need to be able to recognize quickly, just patterns with numbers. So we're increasing by 14 each time for our numerator. So each time we're increasing by 14 over 4. That is our rate of increase, which equals 7/2. So that tells us our slope is 7/2, so it's answer choice D. Another thing we could have looked at there is that since we're starting with 1 and we're looking at 11/4, everything is fourths, fourths, fourths. So that means if we subtracted 1, we're going to get our y-intercept, because x is 0, that's our y-intercept. And it doesn't make sense that when x is 0, that our y-intercept would be 2. All right, so a couple of different ways we could have approached that. And a lot of these, there are more than one way to approach the problem. Okay, triangles ABC and DEF are shown above. Which of the following is equal to the ratio of BC to AB? So since we're talking about a ratio, that makes me think that these two triangles are similar. And they're both right triangles. All right, we see that. And since that's 32 degrees, since angle A is 32 degrees, that means angle B is going to have to be 58 degrees. Or we can look at our other triangle. Since angle D is 58 degrees, angle E has to be 32 degrees. So that tells me we have similar triangles. And we're looking at BC. We're looking at the ratio of BC to AB. So if we rearrange DEF, all right, let's make that look a little better. So triangle DEF means we have F right here, here's E, and here's D. So we're talking about the ratio of BC to AB is going to be the same as the ratio of DF to ED, which is answer choice B. When designing a stairway, an architect can use the riser tread formula 2h plus d equals 25, where h is the riser height in inches and d is the tread depth in inches. For any given stairway, the riser heights are the same and the tread depths are the same for all steps in that stairway. The number of steps in a stairway is the number of its risers. For example, there are 5 steps in the stairway in the figure above. The total rise of a stairway is the sum of the riser heights as shown in the figure. Which of the following expresses the riser height in terms of the tread depth? So here we have the case of where we're just rearranging this formula here to solve for h. So that is going to give us 2h equals 25 minus d. All right, so we're looking for 25 minus d, so we can rule those two out. And then we're taking half of that, so h is going to equal 1/2 25 minus d. Simply done. Okay. Some building codes require that for indoor stairways, the tread depth must be at least 9 inches and the riser height must be at least 5 inches. According to the riser tread formula, which of the following inequalities represents the set of all possible values for the riser height that meets this code requirement? Well, let's start off with the fact that it says the riser height must be at least 5 inches. So we're looking at h has to be greater than or equal to 5. So that rules out answer choice A. Next, let's look at our formula of 2h plus d. And it says that the tread depth must be at least 9 inches. So the least it can be is 9, greater than or equal to 9. So the least it can be is 9. So 2h plus 9 equaling 25. So that gives us 2h equals 16. So h equals 8. Now, but we said, so we already knew h had to be greater than or equal to 5, but based on the formula, the smallest that h can be is 8. So that means h is going to be greater than or equal to 8. So that rules out B, and that rules out C, and gives us answer choice D as correct. And of course, we can see the way it is written. If we read it this way, that says h greater than or equal to 8. An architect wants to use the riser tread formula to design a stairway with a total rise of 9 feet, a riser height between 7 and 8 inches, and an odd number of steps. With the architect's constraints, which of the following must be the tread depth in inches of the stairway? And they give us 1 foot equals 12 inches, which if you're taking the SAT, you should already know that. Okay, so we want an odd number of stairs, and we want a total rise of 9 feet. Well, 9 times 12 is 108. So we're looking for a total rise there of 108 inches, okay? Now we need to figure out our number of risers, and we know it's going to be an odd number, so we have to do some quick math here. So each riser height, if our riser height is 7 inches, if we pick 13, 13 times 7 is 91, and 13 times 8 is 104. All right, so that's below the 108 inches that we're looking for. So then we go next up, 15 times 7 is 105, and 15 times 8 is 120. So we know we're going to have 15 risers because that's going to put us at the 108, which is between 105 and 120. So now what we want to do is find out our riser height. So we know we're going to have 15 risers, 108 inches and 15 risers means each riser is going to be 7.2 inches, which is our answer, or one of our answer choices. But remember, we got to find out or know, when do we know we have the correct answer? We're looking for tread depth, not riser height. So now we're going to go to 2 times h, so 2 times 7.2 plus d equals 25. So 14.4 plus d equals 25, meaning our tread depth d is going to be 10.6, answer choice C. Height versus time for a bouncing ball. As part of an experiment, a ball was dropped and allowed to bounce repeatedly off the ground until it came to rest. The graph above represents the relationship between the time elapsed after the ball was dropped and the height of the ball above the ground. After it was dropped, how many times was the ball at a height of 2 feet? Well, we want to go to 2 on our y-axis and look at that horizontal line and see how many times our graph crosses that horizontal line, and it crosses 1, 2, 3 times, answer choice C. A customer's monthly water bill was $75.74. Due to a rate increase, her monthly bill is now $79.86. To the nearest tenth of a percent, by what percent did the amount of the customer's water bill increase? All right, so looking at percent increase, meaning percent increase, we want our, I'm going to use V for value. It's our final value minus our initial value divided by our initial value times 100. So we're looking at 79.86 minus 75.74 divided by 75.74 times 100. And that is going to be closest to D, 5.4%. Some values of the linear function f are shown in the table above. What is the value of f of 3? So we get to do some interpolation here, big fancy word. But really all that means is we're going to take the slope here since it's a linear function. So the slope we've got, if we look between these 2 points, that is 16 minus 4, y2 minus y1 divided by 6 minus 2, x2 minus x1. So we have a slope of 3. Now that will give us the equation of the line, because we see when x is equal to 0, that will give us our y-intercept. So we have a y-intercept of -2. So the function is f of x equals our slope 3, x minus 2. So f of 3, we know it's going to use substitution. So 3 times 3 minus 2 is 9 minus 2, which is 7. Answer choice B. Now something even easier we could have done without figuring out the equation of the line is to say that our slope, we know, is our rise over run. So that tells us for every 1 increase of x, we have an increase of 3 in y. So since we're looking for f of 3, that's an increase of 1 in the x, which means we're going to increase 3 in the y. 4 plus 3 is 7. Should have seen that from the beginning, but oh well. All right, a gear ratio, R to S, is the ratio of the number of teeth of 2 connected gears. The ratio of the number of revolutions per minute, RPM, of 2 gear wheels is S to R. In the diagram below, gear A is turned by a motor. The turning of gear A causes gears B and C to turn as well. If gear A is rotated by the motor at a rate of 100 RPM, what is the number of revolutions per minute for gear C? All right, so let's go ahead and peel back the layers and work our way through this. Our gear ratio R to S, so let's look at gear A to gear B. So R to S is 20 to 60. And we're also going to have to look at gear B to gear C, since those are connected gears. So we're looking at 60 to 10. Now it says the ratio of the RPMs is S to R. So the S to R now is going to be 60 to 20 and 10 to 60. And that comes down to 3 to 1 and 1 to 6. Okay. Now it tells us that gear A is rotated at 100 RPM. So, and there it's in a ratio of 3 to 1 to gear B. So that means gear B is going at 33, is 1/3 of that, so 33 and 1/3. All right. And now we're looking at the number of revolutions per minute for gear C. So that is 33 and 1/3. And if we multiply that by 6, we get 200, and that is our correct answer. So I like those problems like that. Well, I like all math problems pretty much. But that was just one of our thinking problems. We just had to think our way through that. And we can see that for our answer, gear C ended up being twice as much as gear A for the RPMs, which is the flip of their ratio of gear A has twice as many teeth as gear C. Okay, but anyway. In the xy plane, the graph of 2x squared minus 6x plus 2y squared plus 2y equals 45 is a circle. What is the radius of the circle? All right, now this one here, we've got to recognize that in order to get the radius of this circle, we've got to do completing the square. All right, we need to complete the square. Okay. Now to make things easier, let's go ahead and divide everything by 2 so that we have x squared minus 3x plus y squared plus y equals 45 over 2. So that we have now, that's x squared minus 3x, and of course completing the square, we want to take this number right here, divide it by 2, and then square it. So that is 3 halves, and then squaring that is 9/4. And since we added 9/4 to that side, we need to add 9/4 to the other side. And that is going to be x minus 3 halves squared, okay. And then that's plus y squared, and then we have the coefficient on y is 1, so 1/2. And then squaring that is 1/4, and we're going to have to add 1/4 to the other side also. And now that's going to give us, so that's going to be plus y plus 1/2 squared, and that equals, we have 45 halves plus 9/4 plus 1/4. Let's go ahead and put everything with a denominator of 4. So doubling that, that is 90 plus 9 plus 1 divided by 4, which is equal to 100 divided by 4, which equals 25. And so 25 is r squared, meaning r is equal to 5. Okay. 2 different points on a number line are both 3 units from the point with coordinate -4. The solution to which of the following equations gives the coordinates of both points? Let's go ahead and draw up this situation. So we have our number line. There's -4. And both of these are 3 units away. Now, even though this is an absolute value situation, I want to look at this in terms of polynomials. Now, if a polynomial has an x-intercept at -4, that means it has a factor of x plus 4. And it's the same situation here. We're looking at x plus 4. The absolute value of x plus 4 equals 3. And we see that is answer choice A. A motor powers a model car so that after starting from rest, the car travels s inches in t seconds, where s equals 16t times the square root of t. Which of the following gives the average speed of the car in inches per second over the first t seconds after it starts? All right, so when we're talking about average speed, let's go to our distance equals rate times time. So that means rate equals distance divided by time. And the distance it went was s, and it says s is equal to 16t square root of t, and the time was t seconds. So the t and the t divide out so that our rate is equal to 16 square root of t. Answer choice B. The scatter plot below shows the amount of electric energy generated in millions of megawatt hours by nuclear sources over a 10-year period. Of the following equations, which best models the data in the scatter plot? Now, if you have the TI-84, which is allowed on the SAT, it can do quadratic regression. But do we need that? Let's look at this here. We can rule out A and we can rule out C. Because if we put a curve of best fit in here, it's going to curve downwards, which we know means we're going to have a negative in front of our x squared term. And now the next part that we've got is looking at our y-intercept. All right, so for a linear equation, the y-intercept is when x equals 0, and it's going to be the same thing for a quadratic. If x equals 0, and we can look at the way it is modeled here, if x equals 0, the y-intercept is going to be between 740 and 760. positive, so the answer has to be D. That has the positive y-intercept. And that ends our multiple choice portion. On to our free response. A group of friends decided to divide the $800 cost of a trip equally among themselves. When two of the friends decided not to go on the trip, those remaining still divided the $800 cost equally, but each friend's share of the cost increased by $20. How many friends were in the group originally? All right, so this is a real good thinking problem right here. And we look at here, we'll talk about dividing evenly. We're looking at average. So let's take it from there. All right, so what do we need to do? Let's go ahead and just start setting this up, since it's going to have to be abstract here. We don't have too many concrete numbers to go over. So we have 800 divided by n friends equals C, cost. But then we have 800 divided by, if two friends leave, so n minus 2, and that is going to equal the average cost plus 20. All right, now we have two equations and two unknowns, and we're trying to find out how many friends were in the group originally, so we want to isolate n. Can we isolate n? And I do believe we can, because what stays the same in both equations? N stays the same and C. So we can isolate n by getting rid of C. So C equals 800 divided by n, but C also equals 800 divided by n minus 2 minus 20. So now, since C has to equal C, I know that, let me do it this way here. 800 divided by n has to equal that expression we have over there. Now I need to get rid of these fractions. So what I'm going to do is multiply everything by n times n minus 2. So when I multiply 800 over n times n minus 2, the n's divide out, so I have 800 n minus 2 equals, and now the n minus 2's divide out, so that equals 800 n minus 20 times n minus 2. So that is 20, that is n squared minus 2n. All right. All right, it's coming together here. It's coming together. So now I have 800n minus 1600 equals 800n minus 20n squared plus 40n. 800n, those two will sum to 0. And now let's bring everything over here with that 1600 so it doesn't get lonely. So now we have 20n squared minus 40n minus 1600, that equals 0. Now let's go ahead and divide out a 20 so that we have n squared minus 2n minus 80 equals 0. Now I need to factor this and we'll be done. So negative 80 with a b of negative 2 factors out to n minus 10 n plus 8. And then when I set each one of those equal to 0, I'll get n equals negative 8, which doesn't make sense. I can't have negative 8 friends in the group originally. And n equals 10, which is the number of friends who were originally in the group. That one was fun. All right. 2 times the quantity 5x minus 20 minus 15 plus 8x equals 7. What value of x satisfies the equation above? So this is just a straight up solving for our unknown x linear equation. So distributive property gives me 10x minus 40 minus 15 minus 8x, that equals 7. And that's going to give me 2x equals 62, so that x equals 31. A laboratory supply company produces graduated cylinders, each with an internal radius of 2 inches and an internal height between 7.75 inches and 8 inches. What is one possible volume rounded to the nearest cubic inch of a graduated cylinder produced by this company? All right, so since we're talking about cylinder and volume, we want to use our formula, V equals pi r squared h. All right, so what we can do here, we've got our volume equals, we have pi, and then our r squared, so 4. Just go ahead and put the 2 squared as 4. And we can have a height of between 7.75 and 8. Let's just go ahead and say 7.8. All right, we can pick. And that, let's see, rounded to the nearest cubic inch, that gives us 98 cubic inches. And we could try that with any other numbers. We could have, we could try that with 7.9, 7.778, any of those numbers. But again, when we round off to the nearest cubic inch, all right, we can see we got 98 right here. In the xy plane, the graph of y equals 3x squared minus 14x intersects the graph of y equals x at the points 0, 0, and a. What is the value of a? Okay, let's draw this up while we talk about this. Because what we're dealing with here is a system of 2 equations. They're just not 2 linear equations. And we have our line y equals x, and we have our parabola. Let's see. Guess it'll look maybe something like that. I don't know. All right. And what we're looking at here is, in order for them to intersect, that means the 2 equations have to be equal. We know one of the answers is 0, 0. So we're looking at x equals 3x squared minus 14x. Or we can say 3x squared minus 13x equals 0. Be nice if my brain was working properly. 3x squared minus 15x equals 0. And now we can factor out a 3x, and we have x minus 5 equals 0. We've already established that they intersect at 0, 0, and we get that from setting the 3x equal to 0. And our other one, we have x minus 5 equals 0, so x has to equal 5. So they also intersect at 5, 5. The other value of a we see there, or the value of a, is 5. And we can check that. Does 5 equal 3 times 5 squared minus 14 times 5? Does 5 equal 3 times 25 minus 70? Does 5 equal 75 minus 70? I'm pretty sure it does. The line with the equation 4/5 x plus 1/3 y equals 1 is graphed in the xy plane. What is the x-coordinate of the x-intercept of the line? Don't let them throw you off with the wording they use. We talk a lot about the y-intercept, but what about the x-intercept? Well, the x-intercept, the y-coordinate is 0. So we're looking for 4/5 x plus 0 equals 1. So that means x equals, all right, 5/4. See how easy that was? Or 1.25. Andrew and Maria each collected 6 rocks, and the masses of the rocks are shown in the table above. The mean of the masses of the rocks Maria collected is 0.1 kilogram greater than the mean of the masses of the rocks Andrew collected. What is the value of x? All right, do we understand the mean? That's what this is all about. So first we need to find the mean of the rocks Andrew collected. So mu A, and so that's going to be 2.4. Oops. Get this line back up properly. So we have 2.4, 3.6, 3.1, 2.5 plus 2.7 divided by 6. And we need to find out what that mean is. and that is a mean of 2.8. Now, Maria, mu m, is going to equal x plus 3.1, 2.7, 2.9, 3.3, plus 2.8, and all of that is going to equal 17.4. All right, so the mean was 0.1 kilogram greater, so that's 2.9 times 6 is 17.4, and this will tell us the x once we solve all this, figure all this out, sum all of that, and subtract that sum from 17.4. And that rock X had a mass of 2.6 kilograms. Jeremy deposited X dollars in his investment account on January 1st, 2001. The amount of money in the account doubled each year until Jeremy had $480 in his investment account on January 1st, 2005. What is the value of X? All right, so with this, first thing we have to recognize is that since he's talking about depositing money and the account doubling each year, we're looking at the equation 480 equals X amount, his initial investment, times 2 raised to the 4th power. All right, because that's 4 years from 2001 to 2005. All right, so you have to recognize that exponential situation. That gives us 480 equals 16x, giving us an initial investment. Jeremy initially put $30 in the bank. X is equal to 30. Now, something else I want to show. All right, what if you don't recognize that exponential? Or what if that just doesn't come to you to use that? Use your thinking skills. We can see, let's see, 1, 1, 0, 1 is when he started. So let's look at 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 1, 0, 3, 1, 1, 0, 4, and January 1st, 2005. And it said he had $480 on that date, January 1st, 2005. And since it doubled each year, we just need to divide by 2 each year. So that means that puts us at 240, 120, 60. So it means he started with 30. All right. Use those thinking skills. It'll help you out. All right, last one. A school district is forming a committee to discuss plans for the construction of a new high school. Of those invited to join the committee, 15% are parents of students, 45% are teachers from the current high school, 25% are school and district administrators, and the remaining 6 individuals are students. How many more teachers were invited to join the committee than school and district administrators? So this one is, the math is simple. We just need to sift our way through all that wording, and these percentages were given. First of all, let's look at the fact that our percentages have to add up to 100. So we have 15 plus 45 is 60 plus 25. Well, that accounts for 85%. And it says the remaining 6 individuals are students. So that means 6 is 15% of the committee. And we'll use C for the committee. So 6 is 0.15 times C. So that gives us there 40 people on the committee. So now we can use our percentages. Of those 40%, 45% are teachers, so 0.45 times 40 equals 18. And 25% should be leading with a 0. 25%, oops, are the school and district administrators. Real easy to do 25% of 40. 1/4 of 40 equals 10. And it says how many more teachers? So 18 than school and district administrators minus 10 equals 8. See, that wasn't so bad after all. All right, and look at that. We're done with this one. All right, so continue practicing, sharpening those math skills. I'm out.